I wanna hold a hand inside you. I wanna take a breath that's true. I look to you and I see nothing. I look to you to see the truth. You live your life, you go in shadow. You'll come apart and you'll go blind. Some kind of night into your darkness colors your eyes with what's not there. Fade into you. Strings you never knew. Fade into you. I think it's strange you never knew. A stranger's light comes on slowly. A stranger's heart without a home. You put your hands into your head and then smiles cover your heart. Fade into you. Strange you never knew. Fade into you. I think it's strange you never knew. I think it's strange you never knew.
Alright, in this video we're going to talk about the benefits that may be paid to workers who are not able to work. There are multiple benefits that injured workers may be eligible for. The cost of their medical treatment will be covered under workers' compensation coverage. They may be eligible for vocational rehabilitation, which is training for a new career if they're not able to continue doing what they were doing at the time of the injury. Indemnity payments are payments to replace part of the injured worker's lost wages, and then there can be death benefits for surviving dependents. Now in this video, where's my pen at? There it is. In this video, we're not going to cover these two. These are variable, highly variable costs. These can, medical treatment can range into the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in extreme cases. Vocational rehabilitation costs, that can be variable as well. What we're going to focus on in this video are indemnity payments, those payments for lost wages, and the death benefits that surviving dependents may be eligible for. If a worker is not able to work, if they are injured and their ability to work is impaired, either temporarily or permanently, they are going to receive a disability rating, and their benefits may be affected by that disability rating. There are 4 disability ratings that we'll talk about. Temporary total disability, and I'll explain what each of these means as we go along. Temporary partial disability, permanent partial disability, then permanent total disability. A worker who's injured may end up in any of these 4 categories. Again, we're talking about workers whose ability to work has been impaired by the injury. They're not able to do what they were doing at the time of the injury, either for a temporary period or maybe permanently. Maybe, again, total disability to partial disability is what we're talking about here. First of all, now getting ahead of myself a little bit, the values that we're going to be talking about, the amounts that we're going to be talking about, are from benefits charts from the Workers' Compensation Commission. I'm providing you with those benefits charts on Blackboard, but here is a link also that you could use if you want to take a snap of that and enter it into your browser. You can go directly to the link yourself. But I am giving you a PDF with all of the charts that we're going to be talking about in this video. Under Oklahoma workers' compensation laws, the benefit amounts received by the workers or their surviving family members, if it's a death, cannot exceed the values in the tables that we're going to be looking at. A lawsuit, important point here that a lot of people don't understand, a lawsuit against an employer does not help the worker get more money because Oklahoma law protects the employers. Under Oklahoma law, the benefit amounts are maxed out. It can't exceed the amounts in the tables that we're going to be looking at. Now, workers, as we talked about earlier in the semester, workers may be able to get more money if they can prove egregious conduct by the employer. Or there's also the possibility for them to pursue a third-party lawsuit. But under workers' compensation law, they are limited into the amounts they can receive and for how long a period they can receive those amounts, as you'll see as we go through here. One of the takeaways at the end of this video should be your understanding that nobody is getting rich off of workers' comp. It's structured so that's pretty much an impossibility for someone to get rich off of workers' compensation benefits. Let's talk about the disability ratings and the different amounts that workers can be eligible for, the amounts that go along with the different types of disability ratings. First of all, we have temporary total disability. With a temporary total disability, the worker cannot do any type of work at all. They are unable, they are not fit for any type of work for a short period of time. Up to 156 weeks is the maximum. 156 weeks is the maximum time period that workers can receive temporary total disability. The basic period that they're eligible for is 104 weeks, and there is the possibility of a 52-week extension under Oklahoma law. So you can't get on temporary total disability and draw workers' comp for the rest of your life. You can't even draw workers' comp for the rest of your life if you're permanently disabled. So it's, again, that's the first hit to the myth that people are getting rich off of workers' comp. It's a limited period of time that they can receive these benefits. And for some types of injuries, the limits are even more restricted. If it's a soft tissue injury, there's an 8-week limit. If you have a soft tissue injury, a worker can only receive benefits for that type of injury for an 8-week period. Now, if the soft tissue injury requires surgery, they can receive up to an additional 16 weeks. So at most, it's going to be 24 weeks for, say, a torn ligament. If you blow a ligament in your knee at work and it requires surgery, you can get up to 24 weeks of temporary total disability. If you have a hernia, if you try to pick up a generator and throw it in the back of the pickup, 6-week limit for a hernia. Then that's it, no extension possibility. If it's a diagnosed mental illness, there's a 26-week limit. So if you're schizophrenic and you're getting ready to shoot up your workplace because of your mental illness, well, you can get 26 weeks paid time off to recover from that, with an extension up to 52 weeks. So it's, again, some of these numbers are a little bit on the sketchy side, I think. I think 6 weeks for a hernia, I think that's real sketchy. Hernias, they tend to heal pretty fast if you get them repaired. But and then 24 weeks for a soft tissue, these all seem a little suspect to me. And they favor the employer, in my opinion, and chew me out or write bad comments. Actually, you can't comment because I set the video to no comments. But that's not enough. That it's to the benefit more of the employer than the worker, some of these limits. Now, the actual amounts that they receive, if they are diagnosed or if they are rated as being temporarily totally disabled, 70% of weekly wage not to exceed the state average wage of $986.86. This is the most recent average weekly wage for the state of Oklahoma. This is for the year 2023, $986.86. Workers cannot exceed this amount. Even if you're making $3,000 a week, you can't. The most you can get is $986.86. If you're making, let's say you're making $1,000 a week, your weekly benefit will be $700, 70% of that $1,000 that you were making each week. If you're making $500 a week, a lot of workers out there are only making $500 a week, you're only getting $350 a week for your indemnity payments to replace part of your lost wages. So again, nobody's getting rich off this stuff. Again, 70% of weekly wage up to maximum in the tables below. This is the table showing the maximum benefits going back to 2014. And one of the good things for workers, at least, is there's been quite a dramatic increase in the maximum weekly benefits that injured workers can receive. In 2014, the maximum was $561. In 2019, it was only $607. Then we saw a big jump from 2019, or the first part of 2019, into the second part of 2019. January 1, 2019 to 5/27/2019, it was $607.40. Injuries occurring after 5/27/2019, they could receive up to $867 a week for their indemnity payments to replace lost wages. Again, this is for temporary total disability, or TTD. Now these values over here, PPD and PTD, we're going to talk about those as well as we move along. PPD is permanent partial disability. The maximum is $360 a week. For permanent total disability, $986.86. Can't exceed that value. Doesn't matter if you're making $100,000 a week. You're capped. There's a cap on how much you can receive in indemnity benefits. Now, one of the positives for workers, the workers' compensation indemnity payments, this payment to replace lost wages, generally speaking, is not going to be taxable. So it's tax-free money they're receiving. But still, that's if you're in a high salary position, it's not a good trade-off receiving a maximum of $986.86. Temporary partial disability is the disability rating that's applied when the work is limited to restricted duty for a limited period of time. The worker is able to work, but they're not able to do the same kind of job. There's some kind of restriction, like a 10-pound lifting restriction would be an example of a restriction that would lead to temporary partial disability. They can work, but maybe they can't do their normal job. Let's say they are a bricklayer and they have to handle bags of mortar mix, or they have to shovel sand, or they have to do heavy work. Well, they can't do that kind of work anymore. So companies in that situation oftentimes will reassign those workers and pay them less. Well, for example, if we have an equipment operator that was making $25 an hour, but they're not able to operate equipment because they can't be exposed to vibrations from the equipment, or that they're not able to climb in and out of the equipment. If they can do other jobs according to their disability rating, they're only partially disabled for a temporary period of time. The employer in that circumstance can reassign that worker to a job making $10 an hour answering phones. So they could see a reduction in wages because of this temporary partial disability. If they do see a reduction in wages, indemnity payments may be made to compensate for the reduction in wages in circumstances like this. Then we have permanent partial disability. They can still work, but are not able to do what they did before the injury, and it's permanent. They're never going to get better. They will never be 100% healthy. They lost some functionality that they will never regain. It's been determined by a medical professional that they have reached their maximum medical improvement. They will never be better. Now, the level of disability, the impairment rating, and all these impairment ratings, it's not the Oklahoma Workers' Compensation Commission. It's determined by medical professionals working within Oklahoma guidelines for making those determinations. But the level of disability, say it's a permanent partial disability, they may be rated as having a 50% whole body disability, or they may be rated as having 100% loss of their thumb functionality. Their payments, their eligibility for a settlement is going to be based upon the impairment rating that's been assigned by medical professionals. Loss of a limb or an eye will be a permanent partial disability, and the injured worker will be eligible for a settlement amount, or they can have it paid out over a period of weeks, as we'll see here in just a second. They may also be eligible for vocational rehabilitation training for a new career, a new occupation, a new type of work that they can do. The indemnity payments for permanent partial disability is going to be 70% of their normal wage, but it's capped at $360 a week. And there's going to be a limited number of weeks that they're going to be able to receive this based upon their degree of impairment. And the amounts that they are eligible for is all found in permanent partial disability charts. The amounts that they're eligible for can be taken as a lump sum settlement by the injured worker. Here's an example of a permanent partial disability chart for injuries to the thumb. Let's say the worker has a 50% permanent disability of the thumb. That's been determined by medical professionals, that they have lost 50% of the functionality of one thumb. Their thumb is 50% disabled. If that is the case, they are eligible for a lump sum of $11,880, or they can take that amount over 33 weeks at $360 a week. And here that is in the chart. So we have percent of disability, 50. We have the number of weeks that they're going to be eligible for receiving those benefits at $360 a week. And then there's the lump sum amount. They can take it $360 a week for 33 weeks, but it can never exceed $11,880. That can be taken as a lump sum, and that's what a lot of workers in this circumstance tend to do. They tend to see, well, hey, 11,000. I'm just going to take the 11,000 and go buy me a bass boat or part of a bass boat or whatever. Or they're going to have, most people would rather take the money up front as a lump sum than the taking it $360 a week for 33 weeks. See what else we have here. I think I pretty much covered it. Now these charts, a lot of the charts that we were looking at in this video, they have been updated. They're updated on an annual basis. This one hasn't been updated since July 1st, 2021. These numbers are still in effect. And this is for disability to the thumb, or partial disability to the thumb. There are a lot of different body parts out there. We have charts for a lot of different body parts that may have been injured. Here's a whole body chart. If a worker has a 52% disability to their whole body, they can receive $360 a week for 187 weeks, or they can take a lump sum of $67,392. If it's 100%, they can receive up to $129,600. 100% whole body disability, it's capped at $129,000. They're not getting millionaires. They're not becoming millionaires. They're not getting $1 million settlements under Oklahoma workers' compensation law. They can get the best lawyers in the world unless they can prove egregious conduct by the employer. The Supreme Court cases bear this out. Very rarely are workers going to ever get more than what is in these tables. That's whole body. There's a chart for the eye. If you go blind in one eye, 100% loss of use of the eye, $99,000. That's how much your eye is worth in the state of Oklahoma if you lose your eye in the workplace. Testicles. There's a chart for one testicle, and there's a chart for two testicles. Go back to testicles. If you lose 100% functionality of one testicle, that's worth $19,000. Now maybe you only lose 50% functionality. Then you can take a lump sum settlement, $9,540. Now if you lose both testicles, you're going to get more money, but there's another downside to that, of course. And if you lose your fourth finger, the fourth finger is not as valuable as the thumb. The thumb is your most important digit. Your fourth finger is worth a maximum amount of $6,120. If If you lose your thumb in an accident, you can get 17 weeks at $360 a week or $6,000. If you lose your big toe, it's more valuable than the other toes. It's the same. It has the same amounts attached to it as the thumb, $11,880 maximum. And let's say you have a permanent partial disability to your thumb, and it's only 10%. Now you get $360 a week for 3.3 weeks, or you can take $1,188 settlement. Again, remember, all of these percentages are determined by medical professionals following guidelines that are usually they're guidelines that are created by the American Medical Association, and the Oklahoma Workers' Compensation Commission will accept guidelines or adopt guidelines from the American Medical Association. Then that's what they use to determine these percentages, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the amounts, but it determines the percentages. Other toes, $3,960 maximum. If you lose your pinky toe or your middle toe, if you lose it 100% disabled, that's what you're going to receive. And there are other body parts as well. If you want to go on the blackboard, I give you a document that has all of those disability charts for all the different body parts. Okay, let's talk about another disability rating, permanent total disability. The worker will never be able to perform any kind of work again. They are permanently and totally disabled. They will receive 70% of the worker's average wage before the injury, not to exceed $986.86. That is the average weekly wage for the state of Oklahoma for 2023. And I alluded to this before, and I'll go ahead and read it out here to you now. Let's say we have a worker who earned $2,000 a week before this permanent total disability. 70% of $2,000 would be $1,400 a week, but that's not what they're getting. They're only getting $986.86 a week. That's the most they can get. Again, generally speaking, we're talking tax-free dollars, but still, that's not a good trade-off. Also, these are not lifetime benefits. Even if you're permanently, totally disabled, you're not going to get those benefits for the rest of your life from your workers' comp. You're limited to 15 years of benefits, or an age where you would be eligible for Social Security benefits, whichever is longer. It's not forever. If we have a 35-year-old worker who receives a permanent total disability rating, their workers' comp benefits will expire at age 50. At that time, they need to hope that their Social Security disability benefits would kick in. Because if the Social Security benefits are not kicking in, they're not going to receive any more money. And usually workers in this position, at about age 47 or 48, they would start going through all the bureaucracy, all the steps to qualify for Social Security disability. So when they reach the age of 50, their Social Security disability should be there when they need it. And all of this, what I mentioned this earlier in the semester, but I want to mention it again. All of this is spelled out for you in Title 85A of the Workers' Compensation Law. If you want to learn more about it, if you want to check up on me, go to the Oklahoma Workers' Compensation Commission website, look at Title 85A, and you'll find this information and more in that documentation. All right, let's talk about death benefits for surviving dependents, surviving family members. If a worker dies on the job, their spouse is only eligible to receive $100,000 as a lump sum death benefit. If the worker dies and leaves behind a spouse and one child, it's going to be $125,000. If the worker dies and leaves behind 2 children, it's going to be $150,000. It's $25,000 per child up to 2 children. If a worker dies and leaves behind a spouse and 4 children, it's going to be $150,000. It caps out at $150,000. If there's no spouse, and up to 2 children, it's going to be $25,000 per child. If there's no spouse and more than 2 children, it's also $25,000 per child, but up to a maximum of $150,000 that would be divided equally between the children. If a man or a woman dies and they don't have a spouse, but let's say they have 10 kids, those 10 kids are going to split $150,000. If they have 4 kids, 4 kids are going to split $100,000. Now I'm going to talk more about this on the next slide coming up here in just a second. But the spouse upon remarriage, when they remarry, they're eligible for an additional lump sum benefit. I think I've pretty much covered this going through the chart. $100,000 a spouse, yeah, I covered all of this. I guess one summary takeaway here: the lump sum death benefit is never going to exceed $150,000. Never. It's capped at $150,000 in every circumstance. I don't care if the guy's a Mormon, he has 3 wives and 22 kids, it's going to be $150,000. That's all it's going to be under Oklahoma workers' compensation law. And the surviving family members are not going to have any luck suing the employer or suing the insurance company to get more. Now, the surviving dependents are also eligible to receive a weekly payment, a weekly death indemnity payment. Again, the spouse that died in the workplace, it's assumed that they were working for the survival of the family, to pay the family's bills. There's a weekly death indemnity payment that can be paid to surviving family members, surviving dependents. But again, there are limits, there are maximums, there are limits, and nobody's getting rich. Again, now this is in addition to the lump sums. The spouse can receive 70% of the state weekly wage, not to exceed $690.80. Even if their spouse was making a lot of money, $2,000-$3,000 a week, it's capped at $690.80. Now the children, up to two children, there's 15% of weekly wage per child, or $148.03. So if you have a spouse and 1 child, these numbers are wrong here. Let's do some quick math. Hold on, I didn't update those from last year. I updated everything else, but I missed that one. Do some quick addition here. 690. 80 plus 148.03, 838.83. I think that's right. I might have wrote that down. No, 83. 838.83. That's for a spouse and 1 child. Spouse and 2 children, it's going to be it's going to be this plus another 148.03. It's going to be 986.86, which is the weekly wage limit, and that's it. Spouse and 3 kids, spouse and 4 kids, it's not going to exceed 986.86. Spousal benefits continues until the spouse remarries, until the person remarries. The children's benefits continue until they are 18 years of age. Now, if they remain a full-time student, benefits are normally going to be extended. If they graduate from high school and go to college or vocational technical training, then those benefits are going to be extended. Another circumstance where those benefits could be extended is if a child is disabled and they remain dependent. Those benefits may be extended, or usually are extended. One of the fatalities that I was involved with, the worker who was killed, he had a 23-year-old son who was learning disabled. He wasn't able to take care of himself. He was dependent on his parents for his care. He wasn't able to work. He wasn't able to go to school, but he was eligible because of his disability. He was eligible for extended benefits. Again, nobody's getting rich, and in some cases, let's say crane operator, it's not uncommon for them to make $2,000 a week. Let's say you have a crane operator making $2,000 a week, $110,000 a year. The wife doesn't work because they're living comfortably. They got a nice house. Everything's going great. But if that crane operator is killed, the spouse is going to have to go to work because she's not going to be able to support the home that they had and pay the taxes on their property, and she's not going to be able to meet the expenses on $986.86 a week. Or if she doesn't have any kids, it's only going to be $690 a week. Their husband, or could be a wife, their spouse was bringing home or making $2,000 a week. So take home would probably be in the neighborhood of $1,400-1,500 take home each week. She's gonna have to find a job, or he's gonna have to find a job in these circumstances most of the time, because the indemnity payments are not going to cover their expenses. Certainly not getting rich off of it. And here is a table showing all those numbers. Again, this is the most recent table, 2023, and here are these maximums over here that I calculated up real quickly. Now, upon remarriage, when the spouse remarries, they're eligible for an additional lump sum death benefit. Now, they're going to quit receiving the indemnity benefits when they remarry, but they're going to receive a lump sum equal to 2 years of their weekly indemnity benefits. And this is kind of an incentive for spouses to remarry. If without this incentive payment, you can think of it as an incentive payment, some spouses would not remarry. They're just going to collect their benefits. But if they do choose to remarry, 2 years of weekly indemnity benefits, it could be up to about $36,000. It's going to be 104 weeks at up to $690.80 per week. Check that math there. Make sure it's going to be 2 years at 104 weeks. Now it's going to be close to $72,000. I didn't think that seemed right there. It's going to be up to $72,000. And it may not be that high, but it could be up to $72,000. One final benefit, and I'm just sure this thrills the family to death. No pun intended. Funeral benefits are provided up to $10,000 for the dead worker's funeral. So, and that's it. Now, again, there is the possibility for lawsuits, third-party lawsuits, and if the worker or the worker's family can prove bad conduct on the part of the employer, there might be a chance for additional funds in a lawsuit, but it's limited, and that is very rare for the tabled values to ever be exceeded. I would say less than 1 in 1,000 workers' comp cases is it going to work out where the worker gets more than what's specified in the tables that we just looked at. All right, that is it for this unit. Let me know if you have any questions. If you would like to learn more about anything we've talked about in this unit, I provide you with a lot of additional materials that you can take a look at. A lot of it is legal documents, hard to read, but I'm giving it to you, providing it to you in case you want to take a look at it. I think I've probably got 7 or 8 different documents that will be available on Blackboard that you can take a look at if you want to study anything we've talked about in this unit in more detail.